welcome to this exclusive show on my N-First show. This is Professor Iyer, editor and publisher of Inertia, and with us today is one of the most exciting personalities and an excellent guest in the power sector. Welcome R.K. Gupta, Dr. R.K. Gupta ji. Dr. R.K. Gupta ji is chairman and managing director of WAPCOS. WAPCOS is a leading engineering and consulting firm in the area of power sector in India and one of the best national brands in the power sector and energy sector. Welcome Gupta ji to the show. So before we begin, I want you to highlight, the situation. Currently, we have a 225 gigawatt national installed capacity. Now, of that capacity, we are seeing the share of hydropower has literally fallen to a level of about 19% and lower now. From a level of roughly 26% a few years back. Maybe in the last plan, we saw that kind of a capacity. So, what reasons you attribute for this slump, in the capacity addition?
Hydropower has the largest potential for exploitation for meeting the energy needs of the country, but at the same time it has several environmental concerns, and because of the increased technologies and the capacities, we are also able to concentrate more on the non-conventional energies. We are able to concentrate on thermal power. We are also concentrating on the nuclear power. Whereas all over the country the power potential is growing, the hydropower potential is little reduced, but the overall country's power generation is much higher than earlier. So, we are not very much worried if the hydropower potential is little less in terms of percentage.
Okay, see, the obvious lead question to that would be that we need a peaking power as well as base load power. So, thermal and all those solid state energies have been giving base load power. So, peaking power was available from two sources to India. One was hydro and one was gas. Today, we see 20 gigawatt of gas based power not operating in the country. And in that scenario, a fall in hydro will definitely create a kind of a concern for the country.
That may not be exactly true, because the government has also taken initiatives to develop hydropower in our adjoining countries, which we will be importing to India. For example, we are working on a 10,000 megawatt power development in Bhutan. Similarly, we are having also some projects in other adjoining countries. So, that power will be also meeting the peaking power requirements. Besides, in India itself, we are looking at many pumped storage schemes which will be meeting the power peaking power requirement.
Yeah, but see, overall I can agree, but when I again compare that with the Chinese situation, China has roughly 9 lakh gigawatt, now they are crossing the 10 lakh gigawatt. Now, in that scenario, we are at about 2,25,000 megawatt of power. So, if we are looking at 9 lakh megawatt of China, or that is 900 gigawatt of China versus our own smaller capacity, for an economic growth plan where India's GDP is roughly 1.78 trillion in compared to China's GDP, which is already hit 7 to 8 trillion. So there definite impact in the lack of energy availability to the industry and the economy.
Your question is very interesting, but at the same time I have my own views on this subject, because I do not always believe that we should compare ourselves with China. China has a different model of growth, of development, of working, and we are a democratic country. We have a different model of development. So, comparing every aspect of our operations with China with respect to water or power, I do not think it is a very healthy competition. No, so, we have to concentrate really on our own development needs and how we develop the energy sector in India.
So, I would go with you, because I have been critical of China as far as energy efficiency is concerned, like that 9 to 10 lakh megawatt looks like about 5 lakh megawatt. But then again my question will come, at least 5 lakh megawatt, you are half of that. So, you have to still run a 100-meter race in less than 10 seconds to be a winner.
We are working on it in a very systematic manner, and maybe when the time comes we will share that knowledge with you.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's a knowledge, because I don't see, I'm a little critical on this issue, because there's no power sector man has been able to tell me properly, and I have been trying to find the government. We have even given advice to the government. So, in our opinion at Inertia, the government has completely failed. I'm sorry to say that.
No, I don't agree with your views, and the government.
No, why then the GDP is at 4.2%? You see what has happened today. See, you have come to a standstill.
I cannot attribute all the aspects of GDP only to the power sector.
Sir, power is the driver of the entire economy. How can we say that it is not a driver? Today in Maharashtra, the biggest state that you have, we have 7 gigawatt of shortfall. Big shortfall. The country is being misled. 80 to 85 gigawatt of shortfall exists. Our own research says 75 gigawatt shortfall, which I have given to the government of India, and they are not able to contest that. So on what grounds we can keep tapping our back that we are the best without performing?
No, we are the best in the sense because GDP is not only linked to power sector, it is linked to developments all around, development of industry, development of employment opportunities, development of the water sector. So we have to look at all the aspects in totality for which the government of India is addressing the issues.
I somehow am not in agreement with you on this, because government of India has miserably failed in this plan to address any issue of the economy and concern. In fact, infrastructure is a major failure as far as we are concerned of the government. But leading there, I can understand your defense, because this is a question which the government of India needs to answer and not WAPCOs. So let me go to the next step. And my next question to you is that how do you see that 10,000 gigawatt which we talked about, and we are barely achieved 1400 gigawatt, and we were running that race again to go to 10 gigawatt by 2020. We are already here in 2013. So 7 years, and that path, great challenge to finish all those hydropower sector projects. And we have challenge of everything, we challenge of manpower, we challenge of resources, we have challenge of commitment.
You see, when you address this questioning to me in the capacity of CMD of WAPCOs, I must explain to you that WAPCOs is a government of India enterprise which works on commercial lines. So we do projects on commercial basis. We developed hydropower projects, we do work on thermal power projects, we do a lot of water sector activities, but those are projects which are given to WAPCOs. WAPCOs provides the consultancy services and the projects are developed. But the questions that you are addressing to me relate to policy making and decision. So WAPCOs is not really linked to all those activities.
Yeah, I can agree, but I am saying there is always a bird's eye view, and policy will always keep coming, and we are not divorced from that issue as professionals. And I would say that that question was addressed from that angle, not for you to take any stand on anything, but this must come in front of the country, because we cannot hide things and put it under the carpet. So I would go forward and try to give you your comfort level for WAPCOs,
No, the issue is that whenever these development initiatives take place, WAPCOs will be at the forefront of providing the consultancy services and contributing its might in the capacity building in the hydropower sector.
Right. Now I want to come to that very question. Recently we were at Bhutan and we did a show, WAPCOs was with us, and it's one of the most admirable company in the country. So I want to ask you, what is WAPCO's own roadmap, to build in various areas of engineering and consulting, because that is your domain and forte, and what is the strategy for expansion of WAPCO's footprints? Of course, your footprints are all across the world, but I see that there was not that kind of aggression in the past, So I want to see a kind of assertion, if not aggression. So what is your answer to the readers of Inertia, that what will be the future way of WAPCOs promoting its great work that it has done all these years, and how to progress that work further?
You see, when about 3 years back, WAPCOs was present in only 6 countries. So with the channelizing our own resources, with capacity building of our manpower, with aggressive business development and projection of WAPCOs at various forums, we are now happy to inform our viewers that we are in more than 26 countries across Africa and Southeast Asia. And we are working in some of the most difficult areas of the world like DR Congo, Togo, Chad, and we are also in Mozambique, Tanzania, Indian subcontinent. We are working in Afghanistan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and also in the Indo-China region like Cambodia and Laos. And whereas we are increasing our strength in these countries, we are also looking at business development in CIS countries as well as Latin America to increase the footprint of WAPCO.
Right. Coming back to that whole situation, again coming to Bhutan, because Bhutan is a great potential for the growth of business opportunities for both WAPCOs and several of the construction firms. What we have found is that we are barely importing about 1.4 gigawatt of electricity from Bhutan, whereas I was recently in Thailand and I was talking to the government, the main organization called EGAT, the Electricity Generation Authority of Thailand, and they are roughly importing 5.5 gigawatt from the precisely the same countries, Laos, Philippines, Myanmar, and the total capacity over there is only 45 to 50 gigawatt, in which about 5 gigawatt comes from these. So why is it that we are not able to do this type of a cross-border trade? What are the bottlenecks that actually are existing, and how we can remove and we can go to larger levels of trade with our neighbors, not only limiting to Bhutan, maybe extending it to Nepal and other friendly countries?
Talks are always ongoing with our friendly countries to see that how this hydropower or power potential is developed, and we are able to import all these power to India. These talks are already underway.
So in your angle, there is a greater potential to do this trade, far greater than what we're doing now. Yeah, so we can definitely achieve far greater levels of trade amongst the neighbors in the SAARC region. Okay, so I also want to ask you, one of the biggest challenges for engineering companies like yours is manpower. You know, that is the essence of the growth of the businesses. So with the current trend, you know, it is being seen that the kind of manpower that is needed, first of all, has not been made available. The second phase is, while you're growing, you need both experience, but you need also fresh blood, you know, into the system. So how does WAPCOS and you as a chairman see tackling these issues and growing? Because your growth needs enough infusion at the, I would say, the HR strategy end, you know.
Yeah, in fact, human resources is the only backbone of WAPCOS, and we drive our strength from all our manpower resources. We start with the induction level, where we recruit the fresh engineers out of good colleges, and then put them under a rigorous induction training program, where we put them through a classroom training as well as field visits, and then they get on job training. And during the course of their careers, they are put on refresher courses, they are also put on training skills upgradation programs, they learn the techniques of new softwares, and then they are getting lot of opportunities of foreign travel. They work in remote and accessible areas. So over the years they develop into excellent engineers. And we, in fact, WAPCOS is a public sector undertaking which attracts the best kind of talent because of the opportunities we provide to our young engineers.
Right. So I also saw that there was a lot of people from the IITs and the RECs in your system. So is there a specific strategy in that direction, that take them from these top engineering colleges and breed them into the future leaders and managers?
Correct. In fact, we try to recruit the best available talent, and when they join our company, we try to keep them, retain them with us, and the people stay with us because of the opportunities they get of on the kind of exposure they get, that is unparalleled in any organization. And I must say that even in the best of the multinationals that they say, people will not be able to get this kind of experience.
Okay. How do you rate, you know, in compared to transnational expertise of consulting and engineering versus WAPCO's own environment of consulting, engineering and growth? How do you rate? Do we provide a very equal opportunities here for the engineers and people to grow?
Can you elaborate your question?
Yeah, elaborate. See, globally there are a lot of engineering consulting firms in this area, whether it's water, whether it's power, or whether it's renewable energy also, because it's growing now. Now, WAPCOS is in the same domain, right? So it will be obvious competition that there is an India entity, and definitely we are all proud of WAPCOS. But do we provide equal opportunities in terms of, I would say, resources, in terms of technology access, in terms of research and development, in terms of learning, in terms of working in those difficult environments? So how do you rate, you know, your own experience from going towards this direction? You worked in many international locations.
So the engineers that work with WAPCOS have better opportunities, because the multinationals that come to work in India, they are looking for opportunities in India, whereas our objective is to share India's experience and expertise with other countries. So the people who work with us, they have the best experience of working in different climatological and geological environments. So they come out as better engineers. And if we compete ourselves with other multinationals who had set shop in India in the recent past, so out of that comparison also WAPCOS has the largest market share.
So I also want you to throw the light on, especially we discussed pump storage for some time, but we didn't elaborate. So this is one of the favorites, because pump storage gives a great opportunity to deliver power at a time of peak and actually release that energy. And also you can use that same water in the pump storage. Some of the pump storage schemes can also use water. So could you just throw some more light on what type of pump storage scheme has been delivered by WAPCOS?
In West Bengal, we did a Purlia pump storage scheme. It was almost of the capacity of 1000 megawatt. So it stores the water in the upper dam, and when the peak power requirement takes place, then it generates power. and after producing power, the water gets stored in the lower dam. Then after the peak requirement is over, it is again pumped into the upper reservoir. So that helps to use the same water for production of electricity and meeting the peak requirement.
So how many, is this the only capacity in India, or we have more capacity? What is the total capacity of pump storage?
In fact, at presently WAPCO is looking at 3 pumped storage schemes, one in Tamil Nadu, one in Odisha, and another in West Bengal. That is the 3 projects which we are doing now.
Okay. Do you feel that a greater capacity of pump storage is necessary to balance the current demand for electricity, even for maintaining grid frequency? Because there has been a relationship between the frequency drops in the grid, which actually have to be managed by pumping enough of such power.
You see, we cannot take it as a policy because the pump storage schemes cannot come everywhere. They are location specific. So we have to really see where they can be located to meet these requirements. So we cannot define it as a sudden or a general policy that only pump storage are capable of meeting these requirements.
So then obviously my next question is, how do you sustain the quality of power, because it's frequency dependent, of course voltage dependent as well, but finally the whole thing comes to frequency. We're moving towards smart grid. This country is going towards a smart grid access, So how in your opinion as a professional or as an expert you would see, because you've done a lot of T&D projects, I've seen, doing a lot of T&D projects both in India and overseas, So I want your view of how, people are talking a lot on smart grid, but basically it's frequency management and ensuring the quality and reliability of power. So how do we sustain this? Don't we need the right mix?
Yeah, in fact, these are problems of a country like India, because when immediately after independence there was need to spread electricity to as far a corner as possible. So at that time we did not really look at those finer aspects. Now that those things are stabilized, we are looking at frequency stabilization, power reforms programs. So these are gradual processes which we are moving on, and as such there is no much cause of worry.
We had a grid tripping. My question was precisely that, and that's a major tripping we saw.
So these are all lessons.
There is a lesson in
Yes.
the tripping, because we had almost 18 hours. Most of the country was on
Correct.
the north and eastern side was under complete darkness. So this kind of a failure was actually, in fact, written about by the whole world, and the media was there. When that happened. So we should avoid such a situation, probably.
Yeah, but at the same time, when we say that it happened in India, I must say this happens all over the place. I have read such examples, or in fact seen such examples in US happening, where the grid failures take place.
They came back in 4 hours.
So,
We took about 80 to 20 hours to even come back to grid.
Not necessarily, not necessarily.
At that point of time.
I cannot say in Delhi the power was up and running, I think, in another 2 or 3 hours.
But sir, the problem is most of the country will say Delhi everybody will handle, Mumbai everybody will handle, but the rest of India also matters.
Yeah, but the things are improving now.
Yeah,
They are improving.
So
I always look at the better picture and how the things can be improved upon.
yeah, but you would love to have skeptics and critics, because they will be making the things to improve
Yeah.
for all of us.
But as consultants, my job is to provide the best consultancy where it is required and at the right time.
Right, agreed. So do you have any other view like you want to pass on to both the readers of Inertia and the viewers of the Infra Show here? Do you want to give a message regarding the sector, especially I would say both power and water, since WAPCO is involved in it? So what is the message you want to give to both our young engineers and I would say people who are energy economists or energy strategists and people who work in the I would say geostatistics and geoeconomics of energy?
The message that I would like to give is that the young engineers particularly, or the young youth, that they talk about the companies, multinationals, but here they have one of their own multinationals who has operations in more than 26 countries, opportunities of working in more than 50 countries right across the world, and we work in the areas which meet the society's needs, that is the water and power sectors. And we work right from the grassroots levels, where we work with the Water Users Association right up to building of a dam and major hydropower plants. So there are right kind of opportunities available, there is a right kind of technology available, and not only in India, we can share it with other countries also. So it is a proud moment for all of us.
Thank you, Gupta ji, Dr. Gupta. It was wonderful talking to you.
Thank you
And
so
I
much.
think from this interview, people will take a lot because there was a lot of insight and through this questioning and answer. And I'm thankful to you for your time to Inertia. We and this show we had Dr. R.K. Gupta, one of the leading engineers and a person who was leading one of the most admired power sector companies in India, globally admired, not only nationally admired, and one of the best brands in the country, WACCOs. I'll see you again in my next episode. This is Professor Iyer, Editor-in-Chief and Publisher of Inertia, on the Infra Show. Goodbye and see you again.
Thank you very much. It was nice.